The guy we want to finish on is Jeremy Sochan.
Yeah.
Jeremy Sochan has been awesome over the course of the last, what do you want to call it? It's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks. I mean, particularly over his last 6 games where he's starting to get an uptick in an offensive production and has shot the ball really well from 3. But this has really been something dating back to like early to mid-December when he went to those one-hand free throw attempts and has started to gain a little bit more confidence in himself. I don't want to, get ahead of things right here, but I don't know if I've ever seen this type of in-season improvement from a young player like we've seen from Sochan over the last 6 weeks. He's just gotten infinitely better in so many different areas, and his confidence is growing, and the Spurs are letting him ride and giving him longer leash and things. He's really, really good.
So we're talking about Jeremy Sochan because he had 30 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists against the Phoenix Suns last night. The Spurs lost that game by 10, but Sochan was super confident. He shot 25 times in that game. Like, he was aggressive. I want to talk about what I really like about him in a second, but the overall numbers over Sochan's last 20 games, which, as Spins mentioned, takes you back to December 19th, that game against the Houston Rockets. Jeremy Sochan is averaging 13 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, about 1 steal per game, shooting 46% from the field, 36% from 3, 77% from the line. I believe that most of those, if not all of those, are one-handed free throws. I can't remember if he started right on that date or if it was a couple of games later. That's a true shooting percentage of like 54%, just a few points below average for a guy that, oh, by the way, also ends up taking a lot of tough defensive assignments for the San Antonio Spurs on a night-to-night basis. 2 nights ago, he guarded a ton of Jeremy Grant against Portland. Last night, he got, kind of locked up occasionally with Chris Paul, had to deal with a lot of Mikal Bridges. Just really, really is a guy that ends up taking on a lot of defensive ability. And by the way, this is why I loved him in the draft. I went back and looked at number 6 overall on my board. I was an enormous fan of him because of this versatility, because I thought at some point the offense would come along. Where did you have Jeremy last year, and what have you thought of this growth over the course of this last 6 weeks?
Yeah, I had him at 13, which is a little bit lower. And one of the reasons for that was because I didn't know how the offense was going to come along. I had some questions about the shooting. I had some questions about how is he going to fit into, a different. I saw a guy who can handle a little bit and is a good passer, but is he more, pushed to the corners in an offense? Where is his ideal spot? And the growth that he's been able to show with the Spurs thus far, not just in terms of his shooting, but being competent in so many other ways is crucial. You talked about the Portland game. They use him, the Spurs do, every once in a while as a post-up threat, where they'll put the ball in his hands and run hammer screens on the weak side. They'll send cutters around him. He even hit, one of the Phoenix Suns guys last night with this like shimmy fadeaway from about 9 feet, which was really, really impressive. Like his confidence has grown in those areas where we never even saw him operate in the low post or the mid post areas when he was at Baylor. I think the defensive part of this is always what we envision Sochan being great at. And I think the reason he's getting a little bit longer leash on the offensive end of the floor and asked to take 20 shots a game or be somebody that they say, we got to get your shooting competent right away, is because he's so damn good on defense. And we saw that last night against Phoenix. The offense, 30 points, 5 assists, hugely impressive for a guy like Sochan. But he did it while he's guarding their most important actions and players. He was assigned for much of the second half on Chris Paul and asked to be the guy who chases over the top of those ball screens with Paul and DeAndre Ayton. And if Paul is smart enough to force a switch and Pirtle gets sucked out onto him, now Sochan is matched up with DeAndre Ayton on the blocks and has to box him out. And all of the defensive effort and energy that goes into that, while on the other end of the floor, Phoenix said, Sochan's the guy we're going to hide Chris Paul on. And Sochan made him play time and time again.
That is exactly what I want to talk about with Jeremy Sochan.
Yeah.
Time and time again this season. And look, you can take this one of two ways in terms of what it means for him developmentally, right? Teams have tried to hide their worst defender or the guy that they most want to get rest on the defensive end on Jeremy Sochan. Phoenix did it last night with Chris Paul. In that Portland game, they did it occasionally with Damian Lillard, more often Anthony Simons. Earlier this year, I talked on the podcast about Dallas trying to hide Luka Doncic on him from time to time, and he dropped 20 in that game, right? Teams consistently try to do this, and he does a great job of recognizing exactly when he has like a size-based mismatch, like he did against Chris Paul last night, an effort-based mismatch where, Luka Doncic is just trying to get a blow defensive or like on the defensive end because he's responsible for so much on offense. They're trying to like hide him on Sochan so that they don't get hit too hard on defense while Luka is taking like an active rest, basically, where he's on the court. Or if it's just like a quickness-based mismatch, like frankly, at times he had last night against Chris Paul, where he's just faster than Chris Paul is now and uses those long strides and he's rangy and long. He just moves and he cuts and gets aggressive in transition. He just like figures out how to attack, right? And how to attack that takes most advantage of what he's being presented with on the court. Like against Chris Paul, he just crushed the size mismatch. Like he had a couple of those, as you said, like cross corner kickouts out of the post against Phoenix last night. That was super impressive. He had a couple of ridiculous threes where like the one was like off of a dribble handoff from Jakob Poeltl. It was from like 27 feet. It hits the front of the rim. It bounces a million feet in the air and hits the back of the rim, and it just like randomly falls. Right. But I think that it's getting harder and harder to go way under his ball screens because he is getting more comfortable just pulling from three. And on top of it, he's getting way more comfortable just covering swaths of space as a driver out of those settings if you just go way under the screen. And he's a good enough passer to take advantage if you have to collapse on him. He's becoming confident enough as a pull-up mid-range weapon where he'll go for it if that ends up being an option for him. This isn't to say that he's a finished product. This isn't to say he's some incredible, definite superstar in the NBA moving forward. But as Spin said, over these last 6 games, 18 points, 6.5 rebounds, 3 assists, 50% from the field, 55% from three, 86% from the line. It's a really, really good run that he's on right now. And this is a guy that I think is just going to keep getting better and better and better. His athleticism, his length, his defensive versatility, the passing, the processing speed, the IQ, all of it is there for him to be a very, very successful NBA player. And it's showcasing itself in the exact kind of ways that I hoped it would for his sake when he was in the draft last year.
He's gotten so much better so quickly. And to be a rookie who is kind of the linchpin of your team on the defensive end of the floor because of his versatility and what he adds, while also showing growth on the offensive end, this kid works. He is going to continue to work and continue to get better. This is just a match made in heaven in terms of an organization that always has a plan for guys and is going to continue to get you better, while also knowing that they want a defensive brand of basketball in some regard too. He's so good in San Antonio's system. Yeah,
I'm a very big fan of like he will move up the rookie rankings the next time I do them, which will be not this week, probably the week after. Might end up being this week because the week after is the NBA trade deadline, and that feels like an aggressive week to add that to my burden as a content creator.